Good morning and welcome to Monday's math session. Now, this term we are starting a new unit that hopefully will be a lot of fun. And so we are going to start with area and perimeter today. Today's lesson is going to be more of a physical lesson. So hopefully you'll be able to have some good fun with it. So we are going to look today at finding the area and perimeter of squares and rectangles. So some really basic shapes is going to kick us off with this unit. So on the screen in front of you, I have got a rectangle. Now, we were talking about area and perimeter in school before. Lots of people remember things from year 5, so hopefully it's fresh in your memories. If not, don't worry, because we are going to recap it. So I have got a rectangle on the screen and I have written down the lengths of each side. Now, if I told you the area of the shape is 90 centimetres squared and the perimeter of this shape is 42 centimetres, how have I worked that out? So, if you can't remember how you find area and perimeter, then now is your chance to investigate and have a go. So looking at the measurements on the screen, how have I decided or come to the conclusion that the area is 90 centimetres squared and the perimeter is 42 centimetres? So what I want you to do is have a pause and see if you can work out what rules there are for finding the area and perimeter of shapes. So pause the video and have a go. Okay, hopefully you worked out that to find out the perimeter of a shape, you add up all of the sides. And to find the area, I times one side by another side. So I times the length by the width of the shape. So I'm always timesing the length by the width. I'm not timesing these two sides together. I'm doing the length and the width. So 6 times 15, which gives me 90 centimetres. And for area, we always put a squared afterneath at the end. Afterneath isn't a word. So perimeter is the distance around the outside of a shape, which is why we add up all the numbers around the outside. So if I was to go out onto the field and walk the perimeter, I would walk round all the sides, okay? And if you're working out what the total perimeter is, you're adding up all the length. So perimeter is when we're adding the length. So hopefully that one's easy to remember. And area is the number of square units that are inside a shape. So perimeter, we're looking at the outside. Area, we're looking at the inside, which is why we times the length by the width. Now I've got a little question on the screen. Why do you think area is squared but perimeter isn't? So if I was doing a perimeter, I wouldn't write 42 centimetres squared. I only do that for area. So what I want you to do is have a think. Why do we square for area? If you think you know, then let me know. If you're not sure, you could always do some research and figure out why you square for area but not for perimeter. That's just a little challenge for you there. If you think you know off the top of your head, then make sure you email me or Miss Garraway and let us know why the reason why we do that is. So as a warm-up, I would like you to have a look at the table that you are doing your work on currently. And I want you to find the area and the perimeter of your table, okay? So what's the most effective way to do this? Now, obviously, your table, depending how big it is, you're going to need a unit, something to measure it by, okay? Now, you might have a tape measure at home, which might help you out, or you might have a ruler. Now, if you've got just a ruler, a normal size ruler, you can still measure the table. But what I want you to think about is what is the most effective way to do this? So if you've got a smaller ruler and a big table, what's the most effective way to measure it? Okay, so remember, the perimeter, you would be measuring each side of your table and adding them up. Your area, you're going to times the length by the width and times them together with a squared on the end. So I want you to get your ruler, get your tape measure, whatever you've got at home, measure your table And then write down the area and the perimeter of your table. Now, obviously, everybody's table is going to be different, but this is more about getting into using those skills. So pause the video, measure your table, and then come back when you are ready. Super. So hopefully you remembered perimeter, you're adding up all the edges. Area, you're timesing the length and the width. If you think you might forget that, I'd maybe write it down now before we move on, because you're going to need that today. So length times the width for the area with a squared on the end. Perimeter, you measure all the sides and add them up. Okay? And that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to only be looking at squares and rectangles today. We're going to move on later on onto different shapes, because there are some rules and some tips and tricks to work out different shapes. Area and rectangles, not area and rectangle, squares and rectangles is what we're going to be looking at today, okay? And you can make it easier or harder for yourself, because it's a more practical way of doing maths today. So what you are going to need is some of this, so some tape. Now, if you don't have tape at home, don't worry. You can just draw the shapes out as you wish, okay? But if you do have tape, I'm going to explain to you what we're going to do. Now, it's obviously a more practical lesson. If we would do this in school, we just do it on our tables and write in whiteboard pen. But obviously, I don't want you writing anywhere on furniture at home. So what you're going to do is you are going to pull off a bit of tape, and you are going to stick it somewhere in your house. Now, you might stick it on the floor, you might stick it on your table, but I want you to check with your parents or whoever's at home with you that you're not sticking it anywhere that's going to damage anything. If you've got masking tape at home, it's easier to pull off than sellotape. I haven't got any masking tape, so sellotape will do the trick. So depending on the texture of your table, maybe the floor is the best place to be taping. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick this bit of tape down, and you're going to do the same. So you're going to get 3 other pieces, and you're going to join them together. So you're either going to make a square or a rectangle. Now, obviously, the rules are that squares are all the same, have sides all the same length. Rectangles have 2 sides that are one length and 2 sides that are another. So we're going to practice our measuring skills, because if we're going to do a square, what I need to do is make sure that all my bits of tape are this random size that I have picked off here. So I'm going to need to stick it down somewhere flat first of all, and I'm going to need to measure it with a ruler to measure how long it is. So say I measure this piece and it is 10 centimetres. If I want to make a square, I then need to cut off some more tape, so 3 more pieces that are 10 centimetres long, and then I'm going to stick them and make a physical square out of tape. If I want to make a rectangle, then obviously I need another piece that's 10 centimetres and 2 pieces that are a different length but the same as each other. So on your floor or your table or wherever you are able to stick your pieces of tape, you should have an actual rectangle or triangle stuck together, and the tape is your size. Now, obviously, if you pull a piece of tape off and it's quite a random size, like decimal wise when you measure it, I would cut it with scissors to make it the right size. Equally, again, if you are trying to measure them the same, then cut them with a piece of sellotape, cut them with scissors so they're the same. So we're practicing 2 skills today. We're practicing area and perimeter, but we are also practicing our measuring as well, because you need to make sure you're getting the sides, the bits of tape, the same length, okay? All you're going to do is you're going to make up lots of different rectangles, squares, based on however long you pull that first piece of tape, however long you cut it. That is going to give you your starting point, so it will give you different sizes. And then on a bit of scrap paper, you're just going to work out the area and perimeter and then place it inside your square or rectangle. So not so much work in your books. Hopefully, at the end of the lesson, you will have a picture that you can send to us with lots of different squares, rectangles made up out of tape. And inside on a bit of scrap paper, you're going to have written the area and the perimeter of each one. And it's really a fluke. However long the first piece is that you pull off is going to be going to determine your square or your rectangle. So you need to measure that first piece before you pull off 4 remembering also that rectangles have two sides that are the same and two sides that are a different size, and squares are always equal. So make sure you're measuring properly as well, please, and round up, round down, chop pieces off to make sure that they fit. If you don't have any tape, then you can, what I would like you to do is just pick a random number and draw that line in your book, and draw the squares and rectangles instead, but work out the area and perimeter. So either way, you can make them out of tape that you've got at home, or you can just draw them in your book. But the idea is that we're thinking of a random number, or we're pulling off a piece of tape that gives us that number, and then we're working from there, working on our measuring and also on our area and perimeter. Okay, so please make sure you're being accurate. If you are making physical ones, then maybe write either on the tape if you can, if you've got like a whiteboard pen or a Sharpie, write the length of each side, or get a scrap piece of paper and write it next to it. So hopefully, if you're going the practical way, you can send us a picture of all the squares, rectangles you've made out of tape with the area and perimeter in the middle. If you're doing it in your book, then you can just draw those squares and rectangles. So we're thinking about measuring lines accurately, which we've done in school, and working out area and perimeter for today. And that is your task. So there's a little challenge on the screen. How could you make it harder for yourself? There is a way you can make them harder. Thinking about decimals as well, harder, easier. So think about how you can challenge yourself, push yourself to make it more difficult, or equally if you're struggling, to make it a little bit easier. So what I want you to do is do as many of these as you can until you are 100% confident that you have got area and perimeter and you've got the skill. So keep going until you're confident with that. And then if you want to come back, there is a challenge question that I'm going to put up on the screen that I want you to just have a go at. And then email the answers to us if you have a go at it, see if you've got it right. So off you go, have a go at your rectangles and squares. I'm going to flick the screen over for the challenge question, so you can pause it and come back to that once you've finished, but you don't have to do the challenge question if you're just happy finding out the area and perimeter of squares. So good luck, have lots of fun. Make sure you check before you tape anything down onto a surface.